Well, g'day, curd nerds. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Cheeseman. I don't seem to be in focus. Hang on, let me just fix that. There we go. All good. That's a bit better, a bit more crisper. Um, yeah, good morning, everybody. We'll just wait for a few more people to come online, and then we'll kick off the intro and kick off the show in earnest. Who we got on? Where are we? So good morning to Osama, Rabbit Slayer. G'day to Brendan, Harvey. Yep, Brendan's just up the road in New South Wales. Just up the road. I'll say it's like a 9-hour drive from here. Maria and Christy. Harvey, can you say provolone for me? There you go, provolone. No name provided. Milk and honey acreage. Gee, we've got everybody here. It's fantastic. Okay, all right, well, we'll kick off the show. Eduardo, C. Freck, good morning. Wayne, how are you? All right, let's start. Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. And I'm back. So, as I mentioned, this is where you can ask your home cheese making questions. I don't have the answers to everything, but I will do my best. So we did have, Aaron, hello. We did have one question off the bat. Osama says, actually, hang on, before we start, I'm getting too excited. Don't forget that all the people that asked that how can they support the show, don't forget that you can super chat during the show, little dollar sign down there. I think it's for as little as $2 Australian or $1 US, something like that. And your question will be highlighted. The chat goes pretty fast, as you can see, so I don't necessarily get to all the questions. Just a big shout out to everybody who attended the Mold Festival on the weekend. I know a few people, a few of my of the subscribers to the channel did attend. They mentioned that in the video that I made on Sunday that I posted up. It was a really good festival. The only the pros were that all the cheeses were fantastic, and that we brought home like 13 different cheeses. But the cons, I suppose, the lines were worse than Disneyland. They were so long, and that was because each individual little booth had like one person serving, and they told their cheese life story to every person that turned up. So maybe less of the life story. If you want to read the life story, there was a little card there anyway to read it all. But you know, I just wanted to taste the cheese and buy the cheese and enjoy it, and you know, and promote them via the video. So that was pretty good. But we did enjoy the day. The line was so long to the wine that, you know, you got given a free glass of wine. We didn't even get there, so we just stuck with the cheese. And out of there was about 20 artisan cheesemakers, I think we got to 10, if that, because we just couldn't wait, and it was getting too hot and stuffy in there. But yeah, it was good fun. Anyway, so let's get on with the questions, shall we? And we'll just say a couple of shout outs here. Christy, she said, love the mold video. Brendan said, I saw a recipe the other day called for X amount of single rennet. What is that? I thought rennet strength was supposed to be rated by IMCU. Yeah, it is supposed to be. A lot of the, or a few of the US recipes that I've seen say single strength, double strength, and nowhere can you find what it means. So very difficult to tell what sort of rennet dosage. And yes, IMCU, or International Milk Coagulating Unit, is an international standard that some people choose not to use. Anyway, so I'll just jump up to the first question, very first question. It was at 7:30 this morning. Osama was very keen. He asks why the vast majority of cheese recipes use rennet instead of vinegar, while the latter is so much easier to obtain and use. Well, when you use vinegar, Osama, the curd set is non-existent. It just splits into curds and whey. There is no firm, rubbery curd. It becomes grainy, like as in ricotta when you add vinegar to milk, to boiled milk, or paneer, and it has a grainy texture. A lot of cheeses won't last very long. They don't mature when you just add vinegar. You have to use rennet to get the proper cheese making process to work. So hopefully that answers your question there. All right, we'll go down to the next ones. Brendan continues on and says, so I'm guessing you would need to dose as per the IMCU of the rennet I have. Is that correct? Yes. Do that, Brendan. When in doubt, use the dosage as per the rennet, whatever's written on the rennet. Fred, can we substitute rennet with something else? Not really, as I just mentioned. You can. It depends on the type of cheese. You can't make a cheddar without rennet. For instance, you can't use vinegar to make that cheese. It won't turn out the same. Albert says, hey, Gavin, glad I made it today. Glad to see you, Albert. MJ UK, g'day. Glad you could make it, and I know it's late there. Question from No Name Provided. Does it make a difference when making pepper jack if you use fresh or dried peppers? Yes, sometimes it does. It depends on how clean the fresh peppers. Usually they'll rot. It depends on how long you age it for. It's preferable to use dried peppers and just rehydrate them in some water, boiling water first. And they don't have a tendency to rot. I've used those in pepper jack before, and it's worked out very well. Very spicy, nice all-round consistency. However, they did tend to dry out the curd somewhat and make the cheese a bit crumbly, but that's okay, I think. So, milk and honey acreage. I know it's not very exotic, but I would love to know how to make cottage cheese. Well, that makes two of us. I've tried once. It didn't quite turn out how I wanted it to. Yeah, it was a bit unusual. But I will give it another go when I get some time as we go along. Kitty Cats, all the way from Perth in Western Australia. Hi, still half asleep, but I'm here. Lovely to see you. And Snezana, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Serbia. And Grey Old, I love cheese. Yes, so do I. Wouldn't be here otherwise. Maria says, I've never made cheese, but still wanting to learn. Is it possible to make cheese out of powdered milk? I have seen a recipe online on YouTube. Somebody made quick mozzarella using powdered milk, and it kind of looked okay. It didn't quite look the same as fresh milk. But the only way to try is to give it a go. Just do a quick YouTube search and you'll find it, mozzarella with powdered milk. But I have never made any other cheeses using powdered milk, so sorry, I can't really answer that. Denise, I think it's Denise. Denise, yes. Hi, I can't seem to make stretched cheeses. They stay grainy. What am I doing wrong? You got to make sure that the pH of the curd is usually below, it's between 5.3 and 5 pH. So the acidity has to drop a fair bit before you can even think about warming up heating up the curds with hot water and stretching them. And they will be grainy if you don't get down to the right pH level. Eduardo, if you can taste some cheeses while being blindfolded, would you call each one by name? I could try. I could give, what I could do from experience is the type or style of cheese that it is. I wouldn't be able to name the individual cheese because there's so many different names and varieties. But I reckon I could have a fair go at different styles of cheese. So like if somebody popped say a washed rind cheese in my gob, then yeah, I would be able to figure that out. or and a cheddar, or fresh cheese, or a sherv. I could tell the different type of milk, whether it's goat's milk, cow's milk, and now I can tell whether it's sheep's milk. It's a lot creamier. Um, Next question, anyway. Osama, my question. I'm way behind here. My question or request: any recipes for making hard cheese with vinegar instead of culture and rennet? The only hard cheese I can think of that uses vinegar is ricotta salata. And did I do a video on ricotta salata? I think I did. Just go and search the back catalogue and you'll see ricotta salata there. It's not very much flavour. It's very salty, but it is a hard cheese. Aaron, actually having a cheese making this weekend, making smoked flavoured Gouda and ricotta. How difficult is it to age soft brie like cheeses? Very difficult, because you've got to make sure that they don't go too creamy, and you can't go past, you'd be lucky if you go past 4 weeks, because then you start getting off ammonia smells and stuff like that. Okay, Ben says, hi Gavin, wonder if you get my emails. I haven't received a response for an Appenzella recipe. I do have the recipe, Ben. I'm just time poor at the moment. I'm actually going to VidCon this weekend with my son Ben. So we won't be making cheese. I'm hoping to make something, make a video about cultures and other ingredients, what's important, what's not important, different type of bacteria from the stock of cultures that I've got. So I will be doing that. There won't be any cheese recipe this weekend. I'm hopefully get some of that up next weekend. Planet Sim, it's already midnight in Austria, but I guess I have to stay up late for the cheese, man. Good on you, mate. Appreciate it. Valerie, good morning from New Zealand. Good morning to you. John Lord, hello. How are you? Asman, g'day, mate. Enrique, sorry. What's the smelliest cheese you have? Well, the smelliest one I have at the moment in the cheese fridge is the Port Salut. That's growing a lovely red bloom all over it as I wash it every couple of days, and it's starting to pong. It's on the nose pretty well. So yeah, so that's the stinkiest one I have at the moment. Stinkiest one I've ever made would be the St. Marcelin was quite on the nose, very and it was an off smell. It wasn't a good smell like you get with the very stinky red brined wash cheeses. What's the worst ever failed whilst? Oh, worst I've ever. Well, there's actually a video on all my worst fails so far. Hopefully, and I know I'm far behind on the chat. Kim, if you can pop up the when cheese fails for Astro, and you can check that out there. Kep, how important is pH when cheese making? Well, if you want a consistent result when you make cheese the first time and you get a success, it's best if during the recipe you check what the pH is of the milk. And I don't necessarily do this because when I follow the recipe, I'm using standardized milk anyway, so there's not too many issues. It's more of an issue when you have your own cow and from when it's calved, and when you milk it, if you milk it in the morning or the afternoon, depends on how much the fat content is, and whether it's getting late in the season for the cow, sheep, or goat. Depends on the quality of the milk as well, and the different pH. So it is important if you're using fresh raw milk. When using standardized milk and just following a recipe, it's not that important. The timings usually generally predict what the pH is going to be, and most recipe books don't have them in them anyway, unless you're making things like stretch curd. So if you really want to lash out and get a pH meter, then you can do so. I just use the paper strips personally, but I only use them when I'm making the stretch curd cheese. Brett says, I've had Wisconsin 1-aged cheddar and 5-year aged was 5. Right, hang on. Let me just read this again. I've had Wisconsin 1-year aged cheddar and a 5-year aged The 5-year was creamier than the 1. Any idea why they were both vac packed? Vac packing is a common thing. These days, it's one of the most common forms of keeping your cheese safe when you're maturing it. The plastic doesn't leach, it's food safe, all that sort of stuff. But why the 5-year was creamier is because the fats had broken down within the cheese and given it a better flavour profile. Longer you age cheese, like wine, red wine. When longer you age it, the better it tastes. Enrique, what is the best cheese I've ever tasted? Well, I'll tell you what, at the Mold Festival, there were some pretty nice ones there. I think one of my favourites was a Valencia style. So it was like a little pyramid. In fact, I had some last night. I had the rest of it. Valencia style, ash coated, had a bloom on it. It was about 21 days old. Extremely similar recipe to my Bloomy Goat Blue, but this one was made with cow's milk. So you could taste the different subtleties in the cheese. Very, very nice. First time I'd tried a Valencia style cheese. Christy says, can one substitute nut milks for? No, unfortunately not. I do have a vegan kit, which we're just going to pop up online today, which exclusively uses nut milks. You need a different coagulant. Rennet will not set nut milk. Doesn't have the same proteins. Doesn't have casein, which is a milk protein. And it won't set. So you cannot. There are specific recipes for nut milk cheeses or vegan cheeses. But they are out there, and there are a lot of them, so which is good. Michael, wow, first time live. Good on you. G'day, mate. Christy says, real milk in cheese making, the powdered milk. Yes, real milk as in, milk that hasn't been powdered, I suppose. Okay, Freck, have you ever tried with animal coagulants, also called Indian rennet? Indian rennet, yeah, I did remember there's a plant that gives you, what is it? A plant that gives you the same, I think it's pepsin, which is the other enzyme in the stomach of calves, other than chymosin. Pepsin is the other enzyme that actually coagulates as well. And there's a plant in India called, well, they call it Indian rennet. I can't remember the botanical name. But yeah, it does set milk as well. But I haven't tried it, no. Stephen says, but Port Salut has a delicate and soft flavour and texture, not stinky. It is when you're maturing it, I'm telling you now. It may be soft and delicate in the middle, but when you're maturing it and when you wipe it every 3 days, the smell does build up in the maturation box, I tell you now. Okay, Astro, thanks. Didn't know there was a... Yes, there is a video, yep. Hopefully Kim... Oh, there she is. She's put it down there. Thank you, Kim. What video editor do I use? Oh, there's a bit of a technical question there. I use Pinnacle Studio 21. So that seems to work okay. Don't need the fancy ones. It's usually under $100 per what is it called? Per version. They do a version every year, give you more features. It's as stable as any other video software I've ever seen. Anyway, thanks for that question, Michael. Stephen says, hi, Gavin. Steve in Denver. Rarely is my cheese not crumbly. Even washed curd when am I pressing too hard? Some cheeses still have weight in them when I break the wax. Any ideas? Yeah, there's two things that could be the problem. Either you stir it too long, or you've added too much rennet, and that will sometimes make it go crumbly and lock in too much whey, and then it seeps under the wax as well. So stirring too long is usually the issue. You've expelled too much whey during the processing phase of cheese making. I've done it myself. It's no big deal. So just stir a little bit less. If I remember, Denver, Colorado has a very high altitude, and the temperatures may be different because I think most of the temperatures for cheese making recipes, they don't specify it, but they'll say it's at sea level. But you probably well know that with altitude, you have to adjust the temperature of things to get them to be correct. Anyway, I've gone out of focus again. Can't handle it. There we go. Poor old camera. Jen says, I have the hardest time making small, even adjustments to my temps. Raise from 80 to 90 over 30 minutes. I always way overshoot it or heat the milk really fast. Any advice? Yeah, using a double boiler, I don't seem to have that issue at all. So I had that little pot at the bottom with some water in it. It's probably only a couple of inches, about that much. And then the steam from that heats the milk, which the pot is on top. And then basically all I do is had that. So I bring that water at the bottom to the boil, and then I simmer it. So that brings up the temperature very, very slowly, and rarely do I overshoot. In fact, I turn the heat off a couple of degrees before I'm at the target temperature, and usually the steam will keep heating that up. If I start to see it creep above the target temperature, I just take the pot off of the steamer pot at the bottom, and it stops because the milk will then hold its temperature. So hopefully that helps. Octavio says, what's the worst cheese I've ever made? Well, I actually had a brie fail, and I was really excited about making a brie, and I'm talking about a proper half wheel. Oh, I can't get my hands right. Proper half wheel of brie. But the very first time I flipped it over, it cracked in half. The whole wheel went, snapped in half, so I couldn't do anything with it. We ate it because it tasted nice. But yes, very disappointing. Even had a tear. So, yeah, bit of a problem that. Maria, I have friends who stuck up on cheddar cheese and they with pressure cook it or dehydrate it. What is the best way to do both? Don't know the answer to that one. I've never pressure cooked cheese or dehydrated cheese. If anything, we've frozen some cheese, but only the hard cheeses. You wouldn't do it with a soft one because it makes the texture go all grainy. Eduardo says, how many cheeses can you age? Oh, sorry, how many years can you age a cheese and it still be edible? Well, if you're talking about hard cheeses, look, they've aged cheddars and parmesans, romanos, really hard cheeses, up to 10 years, no problems at all. As long as you keep it at that target temperature and keep it free from molds, then you don't have too many problems. Cheese is a living, breathing organism, and it will survive. And the little bacteria will do their things, and the cheese only gets better or sharper with age. So, I've seen cheddars that are 10 years old. They're very, very expensive because of all that maturation. Steve says, talk about fail. I've given up on my favourite cheese, provolone. 3 times a failure. Tastes good when aged, but no cigar. Jarlsberg was delicious, but again, crumbly. Well, Jarlsberg shouldn't have been crumbly. It should have been very creamy. So there's something going on. I would say too much rennet if that you're trying to do that with, because that style of cheese, you don't need too much stirring, and you're washing the rind as well, so it shouldn't turn out crumbly at all. Yeah, so ease back on the rennet. Have a look at the manufacturer's specifications for your rennet, and it'll usually tell you how many mils of rennet to use for 10 litres of milk. It's a fair standard. So check that out, Steve, and I think all your problems will go away because I think you're over-renneting by the sounds of that. Yes, Kim has said she opened the cheese fridge yesterday, so she can confirm it's stinky. It is. So when I make those wash rind cheeses, you just got to put up with them. Okay, Richard, have you upgraded any of your recording equipment since your last equipment video? Yeah, definitely. The mixer I was using in that last video, it blew up. Smoke even came out of it. It was amazing. It was a Behringer. I've changed over to a Yamaha mixer where you can hear this lovely sound. That's the microphone, not the mixer. But yeah, and I found the Yamaha a lot better, cleaner sound as well. And I've got a new video camera. I've got a Logitech Brio, which can do 4K video, and you can see that's why the video is so clear. We're streaming at 1080p, 60 frames per second, which is quite capable on our very fast broadband network. But yeah, I could probably do another video equipment if people are interested. I think people are more interested in the cheese these days. Mickey D, nice to see you, Mick. Hi, Gavin. My gouda was damp and sticky on the surface after breaking the wax. What did I do wrong? Was it fully air dried? Was it dry to touch when you waxed it? I think that may be the main issue. But did it taste okay? It's all about the taste, Mick. If it tasted okay, then I wouldn't worry too much. Okay. How do I pronounce that? Sergio here. Thank you, Sergio. My first Gouda is soaking in brine. Here in Costa Rica, I can't find salt without iodine, but I'm thinking, isn't the salt in the brine going to kill any microbes regardless? Thanks. No, it doesn't actually. The salt inhibits some of the growth of the bacteria, but it doesn't inhibit all of the growth. Whereas if you add iodine, we know that that's a disinfectant, and that will kill the bacteria. Salt does not. It simply inhibits and provides flavour, so the bacteria doesn't have a runaway process during maturation. Okay, Portuguese guy says, which, as in that kind of which, cheese do you recommend for the pizza toppings? Look, a good combination is mozzarella, of course, some provolone grated, that's very nice, and some what's it called? Tasty cheddar. So cheddar that's been matured for at least 6 months. And that combination I find is very, very nice. Steve, my connection isn't good today. Missed your advice on mile high elevations and temps, higher or lower. I'm not sure, Steve. So you're going to have to check. See what the temperature is for. You go on. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. There is a thing on the internet that you can check your temperature at what altitude. So you put in what the temperature of the recipe says, and then you put in what altitude you are, and then your temperatures, it'll adjust for you. So go and check that out. Heaps of stuff on the internet. It's great stuff. I love stinky cheese. So do I. Richard says, rest in peace to our bandwidth from your 1080p stream. Sorry about that, mate. Mick said, tasted fine. Nothing to worry about then, Mick. Like I said, just make sure it's air dried. Usually that's, if it's wet and then you wax it, sometimes that builds up and makes some stickiness on the surface. Brendan says, Rennet is a strange beast. It is indeed. I have a 140 IMCU Rennet that says 2.5 mil for 10 litres. I have another Mad Melly Rennet that's 240 IMCU that says use 0.5 per litre. Weird. Not a question, just saying. Yeah, it is. I've got Mad Melly Rennet in stock, and I'm going to use it for the next cheese I make. So I want to test it out. But 0.5 mil per litre sounds excessive for 240 IMCU. So I'm going to test it and see what happens. Might just test it in a cup of milk first. I'll warm up some milk to 30 degrees Celsius. I'll do a couple of them. I'll use the existing rennet. I'm using the Chai Max Plus. And then I'll try some of that Mad Melly rennet, which is microbial rennet. So, yeah, I'll check out that. Do you have a white Stilton recipe? Asman, I have a blue Stilton recipe, and all you do is don't add in the Penicillium Roque 40. It's that simple. So it then becomes white Stilton. There you go. So if Kim could pop up the video link to the blue Stilton or Stilton recipe for Asman. You, MJ, UK, Richard. Oh, talk amongst yourselves. That's lovely. Yes, you can change the quality of the video by going to the little cog down the bottom, and you can just lower it, and the stream will be fine then. I stream at the higher rate for people that can watch it, and it usually kicks down in quality anyway. Okay, Aaron says, I was inquiring more in the terms of difficulty maturing a soft cheese like Brie or Camembert as opposed to a Gouda. Okay, yeah, look, it takes a little bit more finesse and care. With the bloomy rind cheeses, you've got to turn them every day, just about, for the first 10 days until they get a bloom. Otherwise, they tend to sag down to the bottom, or the fats go to the bottom, and you get a little bell shape. So make sure you turn them every single day. And the temperature control has to be a lot lower. So for Camemberts and Bries, it's got to be about 7 degrees Celsius, or you get some runaway effect and you get a lot of ammonia, and it's not very nice. But yeah, a lot more finesse when maturing those bloomy rind cheeses. And you've got to check at, say, the 3-week mark after you've wrapped it after the 10 days to make sure that it's not going too runny, too fast. What I tend to do now is after the 10 days or 14 days, when it's got a bloom all over, wrap it in cheese wrap and put it in the normal kitchen fridge at 4 degrees, slow it right down, and usually you tend to get a better result. Well, I do anyway. Okay, so Jason says, I've asked about clear spots I've had in my mozzarella. I've heard not to hydrate your rennet until you are ready to use it because it will start to activate. Could this cause spots? I've never had that problem before, Jason, and I do remember the photograph. I don't think adding water to it activates it. I've never heard that one before. But try it, see what happens. I usually set up half an hour before I'm ready to film and add the milk to the pot. So it may not be that, or it could be the strength of your rennet may be too strong. It could be lots of things, but you've got to test it step by step to see what is causing the issue. Steve says, the Gouda got infected with bee linens and was very smelly, but very good. I think I made Limburger. Very close. Probably did. Sama said, have you had any experience? Oh, sorry. Have you any experience with baking or only cheese making? Baking as in bread and stuff? Yeah, we make bread. I haven't recently, probably for about a year, but Kim and I do make bread. Make it in the bread maker, get the dough to do it all by itself, which is great. Pour it out, and then we shape it into the either loaf tin or a round cob loaf. And yeah, we bake that sort of stuff. Kim does most of the baking in the house. I do cheese making and brewing. Mind you, I haven't brewed for about a year either, but I want to get back on that for the summer. Portuguese guy says, what are the... Oh, I've lost it. Hang on, it's going too quick. What are the options on cheese when you are lactose intolerant? No, I haven't tried it yet, but you can make cheese out of lactose-free milk. It's not lactose-free. It's actually got its two component sugars, which is glucose and galactose. It's just been split using an enzyme called lactase. And you can make lactose-free cheese, which I'll have to do a video on soon. Sergio again, have you seen my comment to your real mozzarella video? The silkiness, etc. I posted a video to check it out. It's great. Sergio, at the moment, that mozzarella video is going crazy. I think it's about 1.3 million views already. And the comments on there are just out of control. So I tend not to go to that video too often. But yeah, if you want, shoot me an email. Just go to the About tab on the channel. Send me an email, and I can answer any questions there. Okay, Kim, yep, thanks for that. Pop in the link up there. How do you think our cheesemakers compare to some during your world travels? From some of the cheeses that I tasted in Europe, mainly France, Holland, and we didn't go to Germany because it was still Eastern Bloc at that time. So France, I tasted cheeses in, oh, sorry, England, went to cheddar. France, we went to Normandy, tried some camembert and stuff like that, beautiful. Um, Italy, we tried Romano, and we were in the Florence area. So we tried Parmigiano Reggiano, which is absolutely fantastic. And Holland, where we went to Edam and Gouda and Gouda, sorry, and oh, fantastic cheese, just amazing. But look, I think some of the cheesemakers stuff that they made and were at the festival was really good quality stuff, and they put their heart and soul into it. What I do think is we need some cheeses here in Australia. I don't know, they didn't name them for the regions that they normally come from in Europe, but some of them were exceptional. So I think our cheesemakers here in Australia are amongst some of the best. So yeah, definitely, I think they'd probably win world prizes, no problems at all. Hi-Fi, nice to see you as well. Yeah, yeah, I figured that out, Mick. Okay, next question. Richard says, I'm going to do a bloomy goat blue and report back on the result. Please do. I actually had a cheese making friend who lives not far away from us. She made the bloomy goat blue, sent me some pictures on Facebook, and fantastic result. Looked exactly like mine. She reckons it tasted fantastic as well. What I didn't ask her is, did some of the curd ooze through the little molds? I seem to have a problem. Does she get a better set? Hi-Fi said, could you make a nice chart of various cheeses and what aging temperatures they need? That way I can see what cheeses can realistically make at home. It's a good idea, actually. Pretty generalised, but be able to do something there. Cheese chart. Now, there may be already something up there, and if there is, I'll repurpose it. Cheese chart. Okay. Try Hard says, I tried to make mozzarella. I used the milk you told me, but it's making tiny curds that won't stretch or melt. Help. You're going to have to send me photos, unfortunately. So go to the About tab of the channel and send me some photos, and I'll try and figure it out. I'll diagnose it like Dr. Gav the Cheese Man. Okay, Cruss, what happened after an explosion? Oh, that's so funny. The explosion at the French cheese factory, all that was left was debris. All right. Richard, I've been doing some research on lactose-free milk for cheese. I noticed instead of lactose, there is lactase, which I assume the mesophilic culture would convert into lactic acid. Lactase is actually an enzyme which splits lactose and its two component sugars. But yeah, it would work. And mesophilic does eat glucose and, sorry, it doesn't eat, converts the glucose and the galactose into lactic acid. So you won't have any issue there. Dan, hello, Dan. Should I use cheese wax or is cloth fine for maturing cheddar? I haven't made my first cheese yet. Trying to get a bit more knowledge first. All right, because you haven't made your first cheese, I would highly recommend you wax that cheese. I did a cloth banding just as an experiment because I'd made it before. If I cloth banded again, I would use butter or lard. I would not use coconut oil. Coconut oil seem to promote mold growth instead of inhibiting it. So butter is a good alternative. They seem to use that in Somerset where they make the cheese, or lard, which is pig's fat. So that seems it seems like you do that. But yeah, I would wax your first cheddar, see how it turns out. Because if you haven't got the process right, it doesn't matter what you wrap it in. it still could be the crappiest cheese you've ever made. And I would tend to try and make some fresh cheeses first before you crack on to cheddar as your first cheese. Okay, Richard says, one of my son's first words was cheese. So proud. Well done. What a great parenting. Okay, Brendan, thanks for the video on milk types. The info about Farmhouse Gold was an eye-opener. I had no idea they added cream to that milk. I used it once to make halloumi. I wasn't impressed with the result. Yeah, look, I agree, Brendan, because I used it to make a cheese once, and I couldn't get a curd set properly. But I persevered, and I got something out of it, so yeah, it's a bit of a problem. How about making your own recipe and calling it the G. Weber? Oh, I could. I've made some recipes my own before, like the Bloomy Goat Blue, and the Petite Blue, which is a nice little recipe. So that was pretty good. Yes, Kim has just put up a link to probably one of our favourites. They made Alpine-style cheeses. Section 28, great little cheese artisan cheesemakers. So if you can get some of those stuff, I don't know if they ship. I haven't been to their website. Julia says, hi Julia, I'm new and just getting started collecting gear for cheese making. Have you heard of Sous-vide immersion cooker, and would you recommend using it? In fact, I think that Brendan, who's in the chat at the moment, has used the sous vide to good success. And basically, you set it at the temperature that you want. So you do a water bath. So you get a container big enough, put the water, put some water in there, cold water or warm water, whatever. Put your pot with your milk in that big tub, put your sous vide in the water, and set it to the right temperature that you want it to be at. And wait for the milk to come up to the same temperature. Really good tool if you need to take your temperature from a lower one to a higher one during the cheese making process. So, yeah, Brendan has just said, yes, it works well. So, yeah, get one. Cheaper the better, I suppose. Some of them are very expensive. All right, Albert has said, I'll be traveling to India for a month in a couple of weeks. I've been wanting to try some Indian paneer, but not sure if milk products are safe there. What do you think? I think it probably would be safe because when they heat the milk, they actually boil it. So they boil the milk, probably for that reason. Boil the milk, so it's definitely pasteurised. Yeah, I don't think you'll have too many issues there. But yeah, food in general, just be careful. You know, there's a billion Indians. They're eating the same food, so I don't think there'll be too many issues. Just got to make sure where you eat it, I suppose. Okay, Brendan says, I use coconut oil, got no mold growth. Okay. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was my sanitization for the coconut oil in the first instance, or maybe I air dried it and let too many yeasts and molds get on it. Okay. Yeah, good joke there, Richard. What kind of music does cheese listen to? R&B. Okay. And Kitty Cat says she uses the sous vide as well. That's fantastic. $200 Australian. Fantastic. Augusto, g'day. How are you? Can I produce my own rennet? Yeah, there is a few ways. Back in the old days, Romans used to use fig sap as rennet. They also used to use the cardoon thistle, and of course the fourth stomach of any ruminant. So that's cow, goat, or sheep. So they slaughter that, and they used to call it the rennet bag. They'd salt it, dry it, and cut off pieces of that, put it in the milk, and that's how they would rennet it. So yeah, of course you can make your own rennet. Depends on how far you want to go. Lots of videos out there of people using rennet bags. I think there was a lovely one from Brazil where they were making a native Brazil cheese. Can't quite remember the name of it. Minas something. And they were using a rennet bag. He just went to the butcher, got the fourth stomach, salted it, hung it up to dry, and then used it in his cheese. Fabulous video. I couldn't understand a word of it, but I got the general feel, the vibe. Got the vibe of it. Okay. Another joke. Oh, Richard's got lots of them today. How do you handle dangerous cheeses? Well, if you say it the way I'm supposed that'd be carefully, but I think it says carefully. Okay. Thank you. No problems, Albert. Kep says, I use a large Burco hot water urn with a large pot. Works perfectly to control the temperature. Is that like those, so like a big coffee urn, and then you put the pot in that, and then, oh, it's got a knob to control the temperature. Sure, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. It's home cheesemakers are a very inventive bunch. So yeah, whatever works. Trisha says, would you recommend freezing homemade cheddar to stop it from sharpening further if planning not to eat for the rest for a while? Yeah, you could do that. I'd vacuum pack it first and then put it in the freezer, make sure it doesn't get freezer burn. And it should be okay. I don't think there'll be any issues. You know, they freeze grated cheese all the time. There's no issues with that either. You may get a little bit of texture loss, but I don't think it'll be much if you vac pack it. So go for it, Trisha. I don't have a cheese fridge, so I could make cheese in my regular fridge in regards. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, look, it will take a lot longer to mature in the normal fridge. Yeah, you've got to be inventive. Have I ever tried cured meats? Has I ever tried to make cured meats? I've definitely eaten them. Yes, I have. I've made my own Spanish chorizo, which was a cured meat, and I made an Italian. It was like a salami type. Had a lot of fennel in it. Very nice. In fact, if she could search the Greening of Gavin, if she's still there, and find my salami post, you can put a link to that. Not a video, but pretty good post about making salami. Trisha, thank you. I love these live chats. Very informative. They are, aren't they? They're only as informative as questions you guys ask. And I'm right at the bottom of the chat. So if anybody else has got any more questions, shoot them through. Happy to answer them. And don't forget that if you want to support the show, that you can do a super chat down the bottom there. All proceeds go to keeping the channel going and the podcast going and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Sergio, can you recommend a good online website for supplies? So frustrating. Funny you should say that. Yeah, Kim and I actually run a shop where we do all the cheese making supplies, and she can pop a link there to littlegreenworkshops.com.au. We've got a cheese making section. I think there's 90 odd, 98 item products in the store. Check it out. Lots of people buy from us, and we ship very quickly. What's the story behind the Greening of Gavin? What does that mean? I had a bit of a green epiphany back in 2006 after watching Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. So I wanted to lower consumption, all that sort of stuff. So we basically turned our house into a sustainable home where we could generate most of our own electricity. We've got solar panels on the roof. We've got solar hot water. We've got rainwater tanks to water the veggie patch. We've got a large, extensive vegetable patch where we grow a lot of our own food. We've got chickens, provide our own eggs, all on a suburban block. And basically that's the story behind the Greening of Gavin. And then I made some salami and stuff like that. So we tried to grow and eat local food. So that was kind of what we did. And that's where the cheese came about as well. We wanted to try and find local milk producers and basically make our own cheese as well. We wanted to make sure that all the food we're eating was good food and not processed food. So that's in a nutshell, but there's 7 years worth of blog posts if you go to the Greening of Gavin. Anyway, how's my garden going? Are you still growing heirloom tomatoes? It's not quite tomato season yet. Start of spring has been very, very cold. I'm going to go and buy our tomato seedlings in a couple of weekends' time. Normally the time to plant tomatoes here in Melbourne is usually November when it's warmed up, the soil's warmed up enough. Seoul's got to be about 13 degrees Celsius at the moment. It's just too cold. Okay. Brendan, I'm inspired to make cheese today after this. Gee, I wish I could. Parmesan, yes, that'd be nice. Take a while for it to happen though. Kitty Cat says, more stream related. I assume that when daylight savings kicks in, that you'll still be streaming at 8 o'clock. Yeah, and unfortunately, Kitty Cats, that's even earlier for you over there in Western Australia. But good for Europe and the UK. It's earlier for them too, so it won't be like midnight, like it. I think it's close to that now. But yeah, sorry about that. Yes, Kim is a treasure. Don't you worry about that. Mickey D says the shop is highly recommended. Yep, Mick is often visiting our shop, virtually, of course, and getting all his cheese supplies, and really appreciate that too, Mick. And so does Kitty Cats, and so does Brendan. So all bought from the shop. It's fantastic. Okay, greening is pricey. What was your career? I work in IT, so greening is pricey. Not so much these days. Solar panels, you can pick up a very good system, at least 5 kilowatts, for about $5,000. And you can generate most of the power for your house. So yeah. MJ UK, gosh, that's my dream. We grow our own fruit. In fact, yeah, I forgot about the fruit trees. We've got 27 fruit trees on our block, all producing fruit. And they come in season gradually. So I've always got oranges, lemons, and limes. We've also got lots of stone fruit, so apricots. Even got mulberries will be coming in soon because they're the first one to fruit. Apples, pears, nectarines, peaches. Oh, we got the lot. It's great. Anyway, Rabbit Slayer, when is the Great Pizza Bake Off going to happen again? We have that slated for the day before AFL Grand Final. So that's 29th of hang on. Is it October? No, September. 29th of September is the pizza night. And my daughter and all her friends are coming along, and Kim and I and Benjamin. So yeah, that should be good fun. Don't suppose you know Rob Bob from Bits Out the Back? I don't know him personally, but I do follow him. And yeah, he does some fantastic aquaponics there up in Brisbane. Temperature's a lot different there than it is here. We're more your Mediterranean temperature. We get cold winters, whereas they get mild winters. And we get scorching hot summers, like 40 degrees 5 days in a row, that kind of crap. Anyway, try hard. I just Facebooked you about my mods. Okay, no probs. I'll check that out. Brendan, I worked in IT. Well, there you go. Cheesemakers and IT. Maybe that goes together. I need to get some more red wax from you. My local supplier only has yellow wax. But for you. Thank you, Kitty Cats. I think I've got some. If not, I'll have to get some in. Hey, Gavin, in your professional opinion, which cheese makes the best grilled cheese? Oh, professional opinion. I'm not a professional cheese maker. Let me think. Look, I think that my aged cheddar was an amazing cheese for grilled cheese sandwiches. But I do think any of the Alpine cheeses are equally amazing. Gruyere. What else? Emmental, any Swiss sort of cheese, Alpine style, absolutely delicious in grilled cheese sandwiches. Anyway, thank you, Paintball130. Wabbit Slayer, buy Gavin's ebook, very informative and a great read. I've read it twice now. It's like a go-to go-to instruction book. Oh, thanks for the feedback, Rabbit Slayer. Appreciate it. So jealous of your trees. We only have apples, figs, and plums, and some berry bushes. I dream of having berry bushes. Every time I plant blueberries and raspberries, they die from the heat in summer. So what you've got is part of some of the stuff I got, and vice versa. And we can only just grow oranges here because the winters are very cold. I've got them up against a brick wall. Anyway, that's kind of getting off the cheese subject. Anyway, Richard, I'm very envious of the size of your land. If I could have buy all I could afford to buy in Sydney as a unit, I'd love a garden. Yeah, we bought in 2000, and we managed to find, we had to go right out of the city. We're like 50 kilometres, 55 kilometres away from Melbourne. So the commute's a bit of a pain because I work in the CBD of the city. But back in 2000, we got a good price, and it's 800 square metres. So you cannot buy that anymore in Australia unless you go way out in the bush. Anyway, back to cheese. Flying Sujan 67 says, where do you find your cheese recipes? Do you think it'll be possible to find the recipe for cheese like Le Migneron de Charlevoix? I hope I didn't butcher that. I'd like to make my own. I've never seen a recipe by that name in any of the cheese books, and I got a lot of cheese books that way. A lot of cheese books. That's where I source the inspiration for my recipes that I tailor to my own needs or whatever. So you'll have to buy lots of books or search on the internet. If you go to cheesemaking.com, which is New England Cheesemaking Supply, they have a really big recipe section. So the recipes aren't laid out to my liking, and sometimes they're a little bit confusing. But most of the time they're pretty good. So just check it out. If not, you can always request it of Jim the cheesemaker, and he usually can find that sort of thing. Anyway, Sergio, back to my first Gouda. After air drying, you don't suggest I wax it with beeswax mixed with cocoa. I need to be creative over here. Beeswax would work. I wouldn't mix any coconut oil in it at all. Just dip it in hot beeswax, and that'll be fine. And if you can keep it down at, I think it was between 10 and 13, check the recipe, what the maturation temperature is. Otherwise, you will have some issues with cracking if it gets too warm or too cold. Best grilled cheese, slice of Gouda, slice of cheddar, and a slice of Swiss. All very nice. Anyway, I've just looked at the time, ladies and gentlemen, or curd nerds, and we're at the 57-minute mark, so I'm going to have to call it quits. Thank you so much for being in the chat today. It's been rapid fire. Don't forget that you can super chat if you want to donate. Other places where you can support the show is Patreon. Kim will put the link to Patreon up in a second, and you can pledge support on a monthly basis. And thanks to all your patrons out there. There are a lot of you in the chat today. Really appreciate it. And it just keeps the show ticking over. Any equipment failures, I buy new equipment with that money. Yeah, it's really good. What else? Don't forget to pop over to littlegreencheese.com. You can see the address down there. Lots of recipes, it's a blog basically. So you'll get recipes, some of the videos that I put up there. And I'm more active there now as well. And that's where my podcast, Little Green Cheese Podcast, also resides. And I've got that going again as well. And if you want to buy any kits and supplies, that sort of stuff, don't forget to pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and you'll see all that. Yes, Kim is the brains. She's got all the lovely links. Big shout out to my lovely wife, Kim, for being the moderator. She keeps it all clean, and all that good stuff in the chat, and all of the links flowing. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you later at the Curd Nerds. See you same time, same bat channel, next week. Bye-bye. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. G'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds.